We're back on the Ford 555 backhoe project today, and yeah, that's kind of a shock for us too. It was sunny and 75 yesterday. I was working on a t-shirt over at the YouTube yacht, and this morning we woke up to something a little bit different. Now, we've had a few issues and hiccups along the way on this, so let's try to get you a little bit caught up to speed. One thing, while it was warm, I did rubber coat the inside of this battery box some more a few days ago while it was warm, so we are good there and ready to set a battery in. But we've got the head off. You can see that on the inside there. I've never really done anything quite like this before, and Clint has been a huge help. When we first got this, it didn't run. We ran through a few things to try to figure out what was going on, and I decided to go ahead and pull the head off and see what was going on inside, and I'm glad I did. Let me show you why. Here's the 3 pistons that we took out of the Ford 555. Now, 2 of them don't look too bad, but this piston right here, it's a little worse for wear. She's got some pretty heavy scoring on her. Kind of starting to get up into the rings right there at that point. And then on all of the pistons, the oil ring, which is this ring right here, goes on that bottom groove. It was broken on every single one of the cylinders. Through nobody's fault but my own, I kind of misbranded this series. I started it out as a will it run, will it start series, and I got a lot of criticism that we tore it down this far to just try to get the thing to fire. And like I said, that's my fault. This is more of a, I want to build something reliable, so let's tear it down and make sure we know what we have series. Don't get me wrong, we could have pulled the injectors, put some gunpowder in it, got it to fire, and made a heck of a video, but I sure would like to get a backhoe out of the whole thing. Now, Eddie Mike is going to help you guys out. If you're familiar with the project, I'll put a timestamp up and just click on that timestamp and we'll get to the new progress. If you're new to this, I want to give you a little information because in case you're trying to do this yourself of how I got where I'm at now, because once we got to this far down, I ordered a set of rings for what is supposed to be a replacement set for a 201. New Holland and Ford. It's a 201 diesel. It's a 3-cylinder diesel. They slapped it in everything. In fact, when you go to eBay and you look up rings, everybody said, check out this tractor, check out that tractor. Yeah, I mean, they put this tractor in everything. So I had to go on a little bit of a witch hunt to try to figure out why I had the wrong rings. So there's a couple options that I ran down first as to why the rings I had weren't working. They do make oversized kits, but typically on the top of a piston, it's going to tell you if it's an oversized. If it's a regular standard piston, there's not going to be any markings. If it's oversized, it's going to say 0.01, 0.02, 0.03. You're going to know it's oversized. It's going to be marked on the top. So I thought maybe I had oversized pistons. That's why the rings weren't working, but that was not the case. Then I thought, well, it's got to be a replacement engine. I was told by several people and found on forums that the initial engines came painted yellow with the tractor, just like the tractor was, and that the blue engines meant it was a replacement engine. So I thought maybe that's where I needed to go. So I came out and I looked in the engine. Now you see here's the frame here on the casting on the block just inside here, and I can't get the camera up in there. I had to use my phone, but there's a block casting number there. And then over here on this side of the machine, where the oil pan meets the block, it's going to be difficult for you to see, but there's a flat spot, and that's where the serial number is. So I took those 2 numbers, the serial number and the block casting number, and I called a New Holland Ford dealership to see if they could help identify what engine that was. The first New Holland Ford dealership I called had no info for me. Now, it is harvest season, so there's a good chance that maybe they just not too worried about a guy that doesn't even know what he's looking for compared to the farmers trying to keep them in the fields. Definitely a possibility. The next dealership I called, a little bit more enthusiastic about the phone call, and he said, I don't have anything with that information, but I know the guy that will. He gave me a number to a shop called John's Tractors. He said, ask for Bob. Bob happened to answer the phone. I explained to him the situation. I said, I've got a piston that says Ford on it, that's on a connecting rod that says Ford on it, that's in an engine that has Ford stamped all over it. I ordered rings for a Ford 201. I got 4 rings. This has 3 rings, and the top one is weird. He said, I think I know what you need. I'll call you back. When I say the top piston ring is weird, the top piston ring has that L cross section. It's different than a normal compression ring. A normal compression ring is normally just going to be this. It's just one thickness. It might have a little notch or cutout depending on where it's supposed to go on the cylinder. But the L cross section was throwing me for a loop, and nobody I could find online knew what this was. Bob knew exactly what it was. This is called a headland piston ring. Now, my rather bold assumption is going to be because when you put it on with that cross-section style, it literally lands right on the head. I found the automotive or tractor industry to be pretty literal with the way they name things. Called a headland piston ring. He said you're not going to like the price. $300 for one set of rings for this piston. Yeah, that's what he said. $300 for an OEM set of piston rings for this cylinder with a headland piston ring. I said, well, here's what I can't do is that. Now, the headland piston ring, everything I could find online of why they made these, supposedly you're supposed to be able to get a little bit more compression out of that cylinder, and this seems to be kind of a later design if I was following it right, so maybe they're trying to get just a little bit more horsepower out of that 201 in some of the newer tractors. I'm not 100% sure, but I do know from what Bob told me and from what I found on several forums that they don't make this style ring anymore, which might also be leading to why that cost is so expensive. I'm not 100% sure why. I did some research online. I tried to find some aftermarket, some off-brands. I couldn't find anything on these. He priced me a replacement piston and rings for like $312, which I was like, well, that's, you know, more than I want to spend, but also not terrible since we need new pistons. And I got real lucky. Found a guy on eBay that had 3 open boxes, obviously unused, with pistons and rings for a 201 for $100 for all of it. So we got the new pistons we needed and the rings. Now, as far as that other casting number on the block, what I got out of that was an E7NN, and there were 4 numbers after that as well. But the E stands for the decade, which would be 1980. If it were a D, it'd be 1970. If it were a C, it'd be 1960, so forth and so on. So E, 1987, meant it was a 1987 design. That doesn't mean when it was made. There's a number on that block somewhere else that's going to give me an actual casting date. But it's a 1987 designed block. And I got pistons and rings for an E0NN for a 201. So that should be what we need. But that's kind of how I got there. And then to triple and whatever check that I was doing the right thing, because I'm new to all of this, I took the information I had from Bob with this style of piston ring. I took the information I had from the casting number and see what year tractor or what tractor they're putting 201s in that year, and that would have been a 4610 or a 4110. And I took the information I had from what was on this eBay listing, and I went into these forums, and sure enough, in some forums for some 4610s Fords, Ford 4610, there are several entries for guys that were looking for headland piston rings, and what most of them ended up doing was putting aftermarket pistons in with aftermarket ring kits, and that solution seemed to work well for them. So that's where we started. That's how we got here. A little bit of detective work, a whole lot of help from some knowledgeable people, and welcome back if you'd skipped ahead to this part. So now, that was really risky, Mike. We just got these. So this is the new piston. You can see it's got a 4-ring design. Everything matches what it should. The manual says make sure the notch faces the front of the engine, which matches where the diesel injection dish should be. On diesel engines, you got this little dish for get the right compression, is my understanding of the atomized fuel. Kind of all magic happens right there in this little dish, but that matches up. It should be on the injector side, and the notch should be forward. That all looks like it's supposed to look based on my limited understanding. Rolling everything in some engine oil down here for the assembly aspect of it. Trying to put everything back together with a little bit of lube on it. Just real nervous. Just trying to make sure we're going through nice and even. It's going pretty easy. It's looking really even. Not really putting a whole lot of force into the hit here, just kind of letting the weight of the hammer do it. Okay, Well, it's just a simple snap ring, and the new pistons I got did come with new snap rings. And seat that snap ring in here, so we got something to tap to, just like that. It's going to go right in that groove. Satisfying click. Just enough that the snap ring will clear on this side. See if I've seen the other new one. One replacement piston. I just need to do that 3 times. Well, 2 times. I'll just shove her right in there. And the rod, everything is labeled, by the way, on the rods. I thought they were. Time out. Oh yeah, it's on the side. Let's look in the wrong spot. They're stamped right here, 2 and 2, so these stay together. And then, you know, we also know what cylinder that goes in. So the snap ring. Oh! Let's add a new layer to this disaster of a lasagna that we're cooking up here. Okay. So these ring kits are actually pretty user-friendly. Ring 4, 3, 2, 1. That is the oil ring. Several different styles of these. This one has the spring on the inside. Watched a lot of different videos on this, and it seems to me that the easiest way to do this style is to take this spring out. It's got a joint, there's a wire on the inside. To take this out and do it separately. Oh, can I just walk the spring out like that? Lovely. And then on that little spring there's a wire right there that slides in. Same thing, I'm gonna soak all of these in a little bit of oil. I don't know if I should or not, but it just seems not good practice to put things together dry. So if there's oil where there shouldn't be, well, we'll just burn it out, won't we? Believe it or not, I'm pretty sure these are cast, which terrifies me because it just sounds like the word fragile to me. There. She's in. Okay. Okay. It's stamped right there. Well, that's probably laser etched, but it does say top. So it's definitely something we're going to want to pay attention to. It just seems so fragile. This one is also labeled with a top. And then one thing I need to do before I put this in and compress them is, see how all these joints are lined up? I need to rotate these around so none of these joints are stacked on top of each other. See how there's the joint, the joint, the joint. I need to make sure I get them all rotated around before I put them in. But I'm going to go ahead and slide that in the box and do the rest of them. We got a little bit more ball honing to do. I sent some pictures to Clint. He said run it a little bit longer. Shouldn't have any issues there. Actually, a few people recommended that. But if there's one thing YouTube's taught me, it's don't trust strangers on the internet. So I'm going to trust Clint on this. I've got the ball hone. And we're going to just use some ATF, some automatic transmission fluid. I've done this before. Let bolts soak in this, kind of like a penetrating oil. And it's just like a cleaning nozzle that you can get at any store. They fit right on the daggone bottles. It's kind of handy to keep that around sometimes. So we're just going to coat the cylinder wall with ATF and the ball hone, and we're going to run it just a little bit. We're going to do cylinder number 2. I've got the crank all the way down, and I put a piece of cardboard over it to help protect it. And as we do these, we'll rotate the engine. I don't want to run that ball hone down and hit anything we're not supposed to on the bottom side. Plus, it just gives me a little bit more room to get the hone all the way through. But here's what we look like. You can see there's just a little bit going on the walls. It's not too crazy, though. A few people are saying it looked like it's been sleeved. You can see that ring right there. I'm 90% positive that ring is just the pattern of the head gasket. We're going to clean that off, obviously, before we put everything back together, so we'll get the answer. There's a chance it has been, but I think those rings are just the way the head gasket lays. So they're not perfect, but they do look a lot better than what they were. If we were running this 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, like a full-time operation, it'd probably be worth pulling that block and having them turned and putting some oversized ends. But, you know, we're not going to do it. We're just not going to do it. I want to go ahead and scrape this gasket off and get this cleaned up a little bit while everything can just kind of fall straight through to the bottom. And we'll see if we can't work on getting those pistons in there. So we've just got a flat razor here, nothing crazy. They make little gasket scrapers that take these razors. Pretty handy tool. Also ended up with head prep, looks pretty decent, should do the job. If you're unsure if it's going to do the job, check the comment section. Somebody's got an opinion on it there, and that's just fine. I just used a straight razor blade to scrape the bulk of it off, and then 1,000 grit sandpaper on a sandy block. I didn't push down or bear down, just use the weight of the block to kind of go across everything best I could to clean it up, and I think that's going to be okay. I think we'll find out at some point. That's the same technique I used on my head gasket when I did my Subaru Outback, and those are definitely comparable in horsepower, so I think we'll be fine. I do want to wipe that down, clean up a little bit, and I did bring the shop back. I'm going to just kind of vacuum up some stuff around through here and clean stuff up so we're not fighting that dirt. I don't have, people always say use an air compressor. Works great when I'm in Mike's shop. It's what I use. All I have is a little bitty pancake compressor, and it only has enough air to go like that, and then we're done. I hope to get a bigger compressor one day, but at the moment I don't. So we're just going to use the shop back and clean everything out, spray everything down real good, get her all cleaned up, and see if we can't get some pistons in here. I'm going to start back here on this cylinder because the crank's all the way at the bottom. For some reason I feel like that's going to be easier for me. Maybe it's not. Okay, I got to get you set up on a good angle here. We're going to take the time to do that. Okay, probably. Are you stable? Well, kind of. Well, this is terrifying. I'm a little nervous about it, if I'm being 100% honest. I do have new... We do have new rod bearings to put in as well. Probably I'll get the old rod bearing out first. There we go. Mike, you got your plastic gauge to check your rod bearing? Oh yeah, I do. I keep it in my heated shop. If you were wondering. I'm going to coat the cylinder with some oil. I don't know if you can see that in the frame or not. We're going to lube her up, okay? This is just engine oil. That's all I'm using. We're going to get her good and lubed. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the inside of the compression contraption. I'm going to lube her up with some oil too, because she's got to do a little bit of sliding. There are fancier versions of this, but all it is, it's just a little ratchet mechanism that compresses the ring down. The number one complaint you get with this one is that it doesn't compress it in a perfect circle, so that could be an issue. But for the budget we're on, this is what we're gonna run. Get same rag I did with the oil. And I know it's a little off camera so you can't see it, but I'm wiping down the piston as well to get some oil on those rings. We put them together with the oil, remember that. And then we're gonna make sure we get all these rotated different from each other. So all those joints are staggered. And we're gonna slide this over top. Of all the rings, just like so. Then we're going to take our fancy smancy key, which it looks like a 1/4-inch ratchet would also fit in here. And we're going to compress those rings down. And I made a mental note, it goes this way. And it's not only a mental note, it's kind of important because the dish for the injector needs to be right there. I'm going to line that up the best I can. We may have to tweak it a little bit whenever we put it onto the crank, but disaster. Well, that did not go very well the first time. Whoopsie poopsie. Alrighty. The oil ring's in there, but one of the other rings popped out on me. Let me double check that I'm good on where all the joints are at. And let's try this again. So whenever it stops that I get nervous, so let's go give another little click. Yeah, well, it feels kind of magical, I'm not gonna lie. All right, let's go ahead and crank this thing around and see. Can't get to the next one. So the book says 60 to 65 foot-pounds. I've got it set to 30. I'm going to run 30 on both sides first just to make sure it's, you know, sitting happy where it's at and not sitting something crooked or doing something silly like that. All right. Beautiful. Beautiful. So we got 3 pistons in, everything's torqued in from the bottom. I am going to save the old rod bearings. They weren't honestly in too bad a shape, but they're pretty inexpensive, and since we had it that far, might as well go ahead and change them. But I'm going to save them in case anything crazy happens in the future. This thing's pretty inexpensive, and it did work pretty well. The biggest tips and tricks I saw was that when you're tapping it down, if you feel like you have to force it, you need to stop and reevaluate. It should slide down. There's going to be a little resistance. You guys saw I just did the old tap on the hammer, but if it stops, which it did on this one, took that clamp off, looked at it, and sure enough, a ring had popped out. I just pulled the piston out, reclamped it, and she slid right in. So it did work fairly well. I'm gonna go ahead and get this stuff kind of picked up and put away and moved on to the next phase. I'm gonna go ahead and get the head on and get that buttoned up so that's all protected on top. Then we'll move down to the oil pan from there. So I got her all wiped down, cleaned up, ready to set the gasket on. Here is the new gasket. That's these rings that kind of gave you the illusion that it was a sleeved engine, but it's not. See, we got like a silicone on both sides. It is labeled front, and obviously it's going to go this way because that's where the water pump goes. And then we do have a couple dowel spots there. So it's just going to slide right over those dowels. Oh God, okay. So I can see down through the pushrod holes, and I can see right down that bolt hole where that dowel is. And that dowel is, that wasn't as bad as I thought it'd be. So next I'm going to take those head bolts. I'm reusing the old head bolts. Some people are going to be mad about that, and that's okay. There's a theme to this. We just do what we want here. You can be upset about it, but listen, you're the one that hit the play button. Okay, so there I took them out. I put them in a box, label them. That's the back, that's the front of the engine. The only exception is there should be a row right here, which is for the valves. So we'll put everything in, then we'll set the valves on there. Now, we're not torquing them with this. We're just zipping them in. That's it. Just kind of getting where they need to go. I don't know if it needs it, but I'm going to go ahead and take this little oil setup we got over here, and we're just going to go ahead and get a little bit of oil on these. Not sure if it's necessary, but we're doing it. I'll do the same thing. I'm just going to wipe these down with this oil-soaked rag. So the pattern we got to use is in the book. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Basically working away from the center out. 3 passes at 90, 100, and 110 on the final. There's one. I'll be honest, a lot of times I'm using a torque wrench. I don't pay attention to where I'm holding it for a lot of stuff because I don't think it's always super crucial. But on the head, I'm making sure I'm pulling from the same spot every time down here at the grip. I'll go ahead and put the starter back on. Go ahead and get the oil pan back on. Get a little oil in it. And then, there we go. I'll keep it protected for now. I do plan on painting all this, but the temperatures in the shop right now are slightly prohibitive of that step. Oh, where are you going, bud? Over here. Thank you. Yep. See if we can get that cleaned out real quick and get her slid back in. All right. Dipped her in some parts cleaner. Scrubbed her up a little bit. Came out looking pretty nice. I think that'll work fine. All right, so I got to kind of put you in a spot where you're out of the way. I think this will work okay. All right, so to get it out, I had to put it in like this, lift it up, and then give her the old twist. I'll get the trolley up here. I'm gonna put my tarp back down so I'm not in the water. Yep. Wish I had some 3M sticky spray I could spray on there and hold that gasket in place for me, but we don't. We don't, okay? Forward, just, okay, that's good, good, good. This is good. This is fine. This is fine, everything's fine. Everything's fine. We're gonna rotate. We're gonna rotate. We're gonna pause for evaluation. We're gonna come down just a little bit. Oh yeah. Yeah. We're gonna fight the gasket again. We're gonna swing it up on that tie rod. Yeah. Yeah, we are. Nice. Just go take the little 1/4 inch and we're just gonna buzz all these in, then we'll go around with torque wrench and torque them down. I don't have enough room for you guys to be down there with me while I'm doing it though, so you're just gonna have to imagination. Okay. Oh yeah. We'll put some oil in it before we forget, because that just seems like something I would do. Then we'll be on to the starter. All right, see if we can get this starter slid in there. Now I did have the starter sent off to have it looked at. He took it apart. He said it looked fine. And he's rebuilt several starters for Dirt Perfect. And Mike's been working with him for a long time, even before he was doing YouTube. So I trust his judgment on that. That looks promising. Yeah, there we go. All right. See, am I seeing the bolts? I'll just walk around a little. Starter to rear adapter plate, 20 to 25 foot-pounds. Okay. Beautiful. And I remember a little bit where everything goes, but it does have a starter diagram that tells me everything I need to know to get the wires hooked up on the starter. So the engine doesn't turn now. That seems to be worse than what we were. It's one of two things. It's probably either the rod cap bearings are wrong. Well, Mike, did you use plastic gauge? No, I did not. Or the ring gap clearance is also possibly wrong. Oh, did you check that? No, I sure didn't. This is what we call a lesson learned. Yeah, I could have had somebody help me, and probably could have put Clint on FaceTime the whole time. He'd have been more than happy to help. But I bet I don't make that mistake again. So what I'm going to do for the rest of the day is undo everything we did here. The oil pan, take the oil pan back off, loosen up those rod caps and see if that makes a difference. If that makes a difference, I'm just going to throw the old bearings back on, because honestly they didn't look that bad. And the only reason I changed them is because I just happened to have some new ones or ordered some new ones. So we'll see if that makes a difference. If that doesn't make the difference, we'll pull the pistons out and check the ring gap clearance. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. Well, hopefully take two goes better. I don't know what day this is posting. You'll notice I'm not posting on my regular days. I've kind of quit that upload schedule. It didn't really work with my actual job schedule because my job schedule is never on the same day. So it kind of makes it tough to upload on the same every Thursday and Sunday. So we're just uploading when we have videos. It's just turning into the Wild West out here. Minus the backhoes. I don't know if there's backhoes in the Wild West. By the way, if you didn't catch the previous live stream, we're still waiting on 2 winners to email me. I've heard from 3 of them. There's 2 more winners. You're in a live stream. Go check it out if you want to win a hoodie. And if you want to win more merchandise in the future, make sure you subscribe because we're going to start doing some more giveaways because I just like that. You guys make this channel happen, and I want to say thanks with some more giveaways. All right, well, I'm going to go fix up a nice dish of crow, eat a little bit of that, and then we're going to take this oil pan back off. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Oh, yeah, we're doing it.